2, 1, 0, and liftoff, the final liftoff of Atlantis. On the shoulders of the space shuttle, America will continue the dream.
Good evening. For this program, we're going to concentrate upon the space shuttle. Now, that program has now come to an end. It was a success, not an unqualified success, there were wonderful hiccups, but nevertheless it's achieved great things. It's shown the way for what can follow. And I'm delighted to be joined by Piers, who've been to Shuttle 3 times, and by Andromada at the National Space Centre, and of course by Chris Lindop. Piers, may I come to you first? You've been to the Shuttle 3 times. What are your main memories of it? I mean, you might give me what's your main memories?
Well, there's a lot to remember, Patrick. You think about it, this program went on for 30 years, 135 missions. An awful lot got done. I was there really for the last half or third of it, which was the construction of Space Station. But, you know, a lot of work was involved with space science, with shuttle before Space Station, and of course the Hubble mission and the Chandra launch and all sorts of other things.
Are you sorry it's now come to an end?
I'm very glad, actually, that it's come to an end safely, because after the Columbia accident in 2003, there was a lot of discussion about whether we should fly with shuttle at all, you know, after that.
Oh, I know.
And the decision, I think, came down correctly, which was to fly out all the missions necessary to finish off the space station. And we got another Hubble repair mission out of it too.
Yep.
And all that was accomplished safely, and all 3 surviving shuttles are back on the ground, and everyone's home safe.
Of course, the idea goes back a long way.
Absolutely, Patrick. If we think back to the golden days of Project Apollo, the problem that we tend to overlook is that if you want to get a space capsule not much bigger than your study, Patrick, back to the Earth with 3 human beings, you needed a rocket that was the height of a 36-floor building. And all of those stages fell into the sea. You couldn't reuse them. If you could develop a spacecraft that could get you orbiting the Earth, but you could reuse as much of it as possible, not only could you reduce the costs, but you could have that spacecraft flying again and again. And the original plans for the Space Shuttle program were to try and have 50 missions a year.
And that just didn't happen.
It didn't, Patrick. I mean, wildly optimistic. And some of that was down to politics. Some of that was down to the final design they had. If you look at books from the 1970s, so many different designs. US Air Force came on board with their requirements, and what you finally had was an engineering challenge that really pushed the science capabilities and the engineering to its very limits, and in some ways limited the program, I think, Piers.
Yeah, it was hard to, you know, meet everybody's expectations. The Department of Defense wanted a big shuttle, a huge payload bay to carry large reconnaissance satellites, among other things. NASA wanted something to orbit, and so on and so forth. So the resulting design was rather fragile in engineering terms. It had some weak spots, as we found out with 2 accidents. But not only that, it was operationally fussy to work. It took a lot of care and feeding to get one of these things out of the pad, all 3 million parts working at once on launch safely.
Yes, exactly. Of course, I go back to the days of the Von Braun space wheel and the founding of the British Interplanetary Society, which was the founder member. That's a long time ago now.
Yeah, well, that was the era of blue skies thinking, of anything we could think of to do the difficult bit of space, which is actually the first few seconds of a launch. That's where you put most of the energy into that initial acceleration. I think one thing people forget about shuttle, and Piers, you could talk more about this maybe, is how complicated a machine it was. Apollo was a great success, but it was relatively simple enough that the astronauts could do their calculations and literally decide that that flap needs to move, or that engine. And that's not what flying on shuttle was like, right?
Not at all. Basically, this machine could fly itself. It didn't need as large a ground team to do all the work, if you like, and fax up the calculations, and then Apollo would go and do what it was told. That was the way that worked. Shuttle basically carried all its computers with it, and it took itself off, did its mission, and brought itself back.
What does a shuttle mission feel like? What does it look like? And where are the scary bits? You're not a shuttle astronaut anymore, so you can tell us the real story.
And I was never scared, Chris.
Oh, of course not, because you have the right stuff.
No fear, not even a little bit.
Okay.
So, yeah, there you go. But you experience all your fear, and you do experience fear, in simulation. The training is really good. The first few sort of emergency events that you undergo in the simulator, your mind is completely, they call it the helmet fire, your mind just goes completely blank. I have no idea what to do. How do I get out of this? And that's, I think everyone experiences that in the simulator. But by the time you've moshed through that 30, 50 times and you're ready to get into this, it's a very familiar environment. And when things do go wrong, you don't feel frightened. In any case, on the day, there's this big gantry here, and with your 6 best friends, you take the elevator up. You use the last bathroom on Earth, which is right here. There's a little prison toilet over here.
I'm sorry we don't have a model of that.
No, it's right there. And then come across the gangplank, get in, and you all strap in. There's sort of 4 guys upstairs looking out these windows here, and 2 looking out these windows, and 2 can crane your necks and look out these top windows. And then everyone else downstairs, where you have no windows. It's a very strange place to be.
You took this wonderful ride without a view. Were you downstairs?
I've taken the ride up twice with